Hi everyone and welcome to Protocol 36, and in today's video we'll be talking about who the main villain is going to be in Spider-Man No Way Home. Now before we get started, if at any point you enjoy this video, I'd really appreciate if you could drop a like, as that would really help out the channel. Thank you. Now last year in May, I did make a similar type of video on who I thought was going to be the main villain of the film, but a lot has changed since then, which makes me think that the main villain will be a different character. Now if you haven't watched that video, I basically said that Kraven the Hunter was going to be the main villain of the film, which is something John Watts also wanted. But since Spider-Man No Way Home looks to be like a multiverse type of film, while also trying to resolve the identity crisis storyline, I kind of think Kraven has a less of a chance of being the main villain of the film. He could still be in it, but as of right now, I think it will be someone else. Obviously in the channel, I also talked about Spencer and Alistair Smythe being in the film. I still think there's a good chance that we might see the Spider Slayers go after Peter after his secret identity was outed by Mysterio. Though of course not the main villains or villain, depending if they go with Spencer or his son Alistair. Speaking of Mysterio, I think most of us can safely assume that he might not be the main villain of the film. Whether or not he's alive though, that's up to debate. Personally, I still think there's still a chance that he might be alive, even if he's not going to show up in Spider-Man No Way Home. Kinda like with the Red Skull, when he was teleported by the Space Stone to Warmere to watch over the Soul Stone, and we never got to see what happened to him until Avengers Infinity War. Now, I don't think we'll have to wait that long to see Mysterio, but I do think he still has a chance of showing up in the future of the MCU. Now, obviously with Jamie Foxx appearing, potentially as a different version of Electro compared to the version of the Amazing Spider-Man 2, but that's yet to be seen. I think we could also easily say that he may not be the main villain of the film, as not only was he the main villain of the Amazing Spider-Man 2, but when you have a character like Dark who's an even bigger villain and has the potential to be the main villain of the film, I think the chances are slim, which obviously leads us towards Dark, specifically Alfred Molina's Dark from Spider-Man 2. Now if you watch one of my videos on how I think Dark could return in Spider-Man No Way Home after the events of Spider-Man 2, if you haven't yet, it'll be in the card in the right hand corner of the video. But I pretty much said that I think there's a very good chance that Alfred Molina may not even be a villain of the film, as we know that in Spider-Man 2 he pretty much became a good guy again. Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker was able to redeem him and remind him of his errors, which allowed him to sacrifice himself to save New York, or at least as we thought. Obviously there's a chance that he could be a villain in Spider-Man No Way Home, especially once again if it involves time travel or diverging timelines, though it's worth mentioning that when Alfred Molina asked John Watts about the Dark he will be playing in Spider-Man No Way Home, John Watts pretty much told him they'd be picking up the moment from the river. So when it comes to Dark, I personally don't think that he'll be a villain, and potentially he may not even have a lot of screen time, though obviously that's yet to be seen. Unless the arms once again take over, though I hope they don't erase his arc from Spider-Man 2. With Spider-Man No Way Home potentially being about the Spider-Verse, there's a chance that someone like Morlun could potentially be the main villain of the film. Now if you don't know Morlun from the comics, he's an inheritor who pretty much goes around the multiverse, attacks and feed other spider people, killing them. And with Spider-Man No Way Home featuring characters like Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's versions of Peter Parker, I can see the potential of Merlin being in it. However, even though there's potential that he might be in the film, I personally think that they won't use him for Spider-Man No Way Home, and they might use a character who's a much more classic and personal foe of Peter Parker. So if I don't think Kraven the Hunter, Merlin, Electro, Spider Slayers and Dark are the main villains, who could it possibly be? Now in my opinion, as of right now, I think Norman Osborn, aka the Green Goblin, could be the main villain of Spider-Man No Way Home. Now the reason why I say this is because, as we know, there have been multiple leaks and reports of that Norman Osborn may in fact be in the film, specifically Willem Dafoe. Now if he was going to be in it, there's a chance that he could be playing the Raimi's version of the character, but he might be playing the MCU's version of Norman Osborn, as there's a leak from 4chan, which isn't the most reliable places of course when it comes to rumors and leaks, but this is pretty interesting. And the leak pretty much states that Marvel wanted to introduce Norman Osborn and Oscorp at the end of Falcon and the Winter Soldier's finale, and it would be revealed as Willem Dafoe playing Osborn, not from the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, but from the MCU's main reality. Spoilers for the Falcon and the Winter Soldier finale if you haven't seen it yet. The scene will take place after Sharon Carter is given her pardon, which we see she finishes talking to a mysterious contact, and here's where things take a turn. The episode wouldn't have originally ended with the camera panning to an American flag, but it would have cut to Sharon Carter's contact, Norman Osborn. Willem Dafoe back as Norman Osborn would hang up on Sharon, saying that he will talk to her later. The scene will cut out to Norman Osborn looking at something which emits green light. Norman Osborn says, and so it begins. The scene would then cut to the outside of the Oscorp building, which revealed to be the old Avengers Tower. The episode would end here. Now in my opinion, even though it comes from 4chan and there's a very good chance that this could be fake, so take this with a grain of salt, personally personally, I think it holds a little bit of weight. The reason why I say this is because, as we know, Sharon was indeed the power broker, and she basically hired Batroc to help out the Flag Smashers, and in doing so she gave him several tech which were pretty impressive and looks very advanced, as one of their locks was so strong that it took several punches of the Winter Soldier's vibranium arm to take it off, and one of these smoke bomb did flash out green, which obviously not only does it indicate Oscorp tech or the Green Goblin, but also kind of looks like the pumpkin bombs from the Sam Raimi Spider-Man universe. Now obviously none of this is confirmed, but I do think that, especially with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier potentially setting up the Thunderbolts, and obviously Norman Osborn was one of the leaders of the Thunderbolts to the point that he turned them into Dark Avengers, I do think there's a strong case of Norman Osborn not only being a major villain in the MCU, but also being the main villain of Spider-Man No Way Home, and would be great to see. And even though Norman Osborn has appeared and been the main villain of the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man film, he hasn't really shown up a lot, if we're being honest. Especially majority of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, he was dead, and the Amazing Spider-Man franchise pretty much quote-unquote killed him off in the Amazing Spider-Man 2 and made Harry Osborn the Green Goblin, which is why I think he has a higher chance of being the main villain compared to someone like Electro, who even though is an extremely powerful character, he isn't Peter Parker's arch nemesis. That belongs to Norman Osborn, debatably. So with Electro, I think he will just be one of these side villains, kinda like in Spider-Man PS4. Now, because Spider-Man No Way Home has other villains as well, potentially setting up the Sinister Six, I do think that like the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, he will also lead the Sinister Six and develop a rivalry against Tom Holland's Peter Parker. However, what about you guys? Who do you think will be the main villain of Spider-Man No Way Home? Do you think it will be Norman Osborn, aka the Green Goblin, or do you think it will be someone else? Let me know in the comments down below. I would love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Twitter. If you enjoyed this video, please like, and want more, subscribe. To begin, Protocol 36.